Hey, tribe, we're back again. No, I have nothing in my pocket. It's just me, but it is so great to see you. And as promised, I'm coming to you with something I'm very passionate about and also something that I promised would be the most important skills that you've never heard of. So, the big umbrella term that we're going to talk about today is called executive function. And I know I gave a sneak peek yesterday or last week. Executive function is really an umbrella term. So if you think of an umbrella, it can go over lots of stuff. That's what executive function is. So it covers um, six main areas, and working memory is a support for them, although I don't treat it like an executive function. So it could be seven, but the six areas that I really focus on developing with my students and with the parents who I coach to help their own children are planning, organization. See, I'm once a teacher, always a teacher. Planning, organization, focus on attention, impulse control, emotional control, and flexible thinking. So these six areas, again, focus on attention, planning, organization. Sorry, I lost my own focus and attention. That's ironic. Impulse control, emotional control, and flexible thinking. Those six areas are some of the most powerful skills we can help students develop, yet I can say for sure in my credential program, they were not even mentioned. And I went to a great school. So you can imagine, the disconnect between people who are trying to help support teenagers and even special educators who are trying to support people with executive function deficits. And we see the deficits, but we don't know what to do. We may not even know how to categorize them, so we know what to Google. So I wanted to run you through a couple of examples today and then talk about how you notice executive function and a little bit how you coach it. That's going to be more coming up soon. But so when you notice an executive function deficit, it's because it's holding a child back. So think about a really smart kid that you know that just forgets to turn in his homework even though it's done, or a child who can orally respond so well but then can't attend independently when it comes to that part of the day, or a child who struggles to find things even though it's the same things that you need over and over. Things like that are associated with executive function. So quick background on where executive function comes from. It's really associated with the frontal lobe of your brain. And the crazy thing about the brain, and the teenage brain, especially the adolescent brain, is that it's not done developing until age 22. And I'd argue that we're always getting smarter, we're always learning, we're always developing new neural pathways, but the structural developments are really not done until age 22. So you heard that right. Your teen and tween is not crazy. They are under construction. So what that also means is that that part of your brain that's associated with all these things like planning, organization, the six areas that I just mentioned, is coming online. The great news is we can get in there and coach it to be thinking of strategies and have a growth mindset about its development. The tough thing is sometimes as a child may get something in one environment and then it won't generalize to another, or a new situation will pop up and then we'll kind of bump into those executive function deficits again. So it's something that is tricky over time. I just saw Mindy join. Hi Mindy, hi Susie. It's so good to see everybody on here. And again, there you go. I was just talking about the irony of being an expert in supporting student attention, and sometimes I'm not the boss of mine. So we all have areas to grow in executive function. And I know for me, the emotional piece is typically the hardest for me because I take things really personally, and I have a lot of strategies that I hope to be able to teach you that I use to be able to kind of cope with life and adult and do all those things that demand a high level of executive function. So, and unfortunately, I've been having such a hard time finding another term that encapsulates it that's not so heady and could be kind of turn people away because it seems so technical. And I'm really open to suggestion. I know some people are starting to call it cognitive control, which to me is not a huge improvement. I want to be able to share this information because I found it so empowering for my students, like I said last week. So I'm really hoping that people can step past the fact that executive function sounds a little bit intimidating and jump into the learning, which I hope to make really accessible. So again, that executive function is associated with the frontal lobe of the brain. Our brains aren't done structurally developing until 22, and this is the part that takes the longest. It comes online last. So when we're parenting teens and tweens, sometimes I tell them, I've got to be your executive function for you for a little bit. I've got to be that decision maker, because that's also part of executive function when we talk about planning, is considering consequences before we act. And I know that's a huge complaint that we have about teenagers, like, why'd you do that? And they literally say they don't know. Sometimes they don't legit know. And it's because of the executive function deficit. Isn't that crazy? So, and that I'm not encouraging you to like lighten the consequence, but because the consequences are natural and it's part of the learning process, if you mess up, you're going to have a consequence. But the idea behind my sharing that with you is that you can think about, oh, that's a brain thing. That's not my kid being naughty. That's a brain thing. And then kind of back up when you're out of that you're being naughty moment into more of a calm moment. Then you can kind of teach some skills to get around that bump in the road next time. So, but I am getting ahead of myself. Okay, so I wanted to give you two examples. An example of a child who comes on board with pretty strong executive function, and then a second example of a child who is struggling with it. And I think the takeaway from this is you're going to feel the struggle, probably recognize some kids you know in this, and then also realize that, man, maybe I've been approaching this as a behavior issue when really it's a misunderstanding. So that's my hope in sharing these two children with you. And I'll probably stick with the male gender this time just because it's more consistent, but next time I'll do female. So I'm not hating on boys, trust me. I love everybody. Oh, hi, Myron. Hi, Joan. I'm so glad you're here. Myron, thank you for the kind words. I saw what you posted on the last video. And man, I'm the proudest second mommy ever of you. So keep up the good work, my love. All right, so here's an example of a child who, who has excellent executive function. So we're just gonna run through the morning routine. Ready? I'm hoping that you're gonna feel, oh man, that takes so much. Like, I have so much appreciation for the mental facilities that I've been using, but also, man, no wonder this is so tricky for my kid, okay? So, getting ready for school. A child who has strong executive function is going to wake up and have a pretty clear focus, a pretty clear rundown, a visualization, like a mental movie of what getting ready looks like. So this kid probably won't be derailed by things that are more interesting than getting their clothes put on. And because this child will have good, strong organization systems and planning kicks in, then he will be able to find his shoes, find his socks, two matching clean socks, have not so wrinkled clothes hung up in the closet. And pause right here, because I'm not saying every kid that has wrinkled clothes has executive function deficits. So don't get me wrong. Sometimes my clothes are wrinkled too, but it's just a good manifestation of having a good organization system. If you're noticing that the pattern is, oh, a child with strong executive function can find their things really easily and well, it makes sense because they have a system, okay? So the child's dressed, we've been efficient with time, we've managed attention and focus to kind of tune out some of that extraneous stuff, maybe little sisters whining, and we're just not getting off track when we're the child with a strong executive function. Next would be like packing a bag, and the child with strong executive function has a good idea of what's coming up in the day, so he knows what to pack, maybe how many snacks to put in his lunch, to remember the cleats because he has soccer practice. All of those things come pretty nag-free from the parent because the child has a good visual movie of what's expected, maybe some other systems, maybe some visual prompts, things that he's kind of generated himself or that just come naturally to him when he has strong executive function. So this kid can also very likely pack his own lunch really well and pretty quickly. There's not a whole lot of nag and yelling dynamic with a child that has strong executive function because he's kind of got it. He's kind of like a self-starter. And this child will make it on time. So maybe even have like a little bit of extra time, which I am jealous of. That is not me yet, but I'm working on it. Okay. So I'm hoping that you're recognizing, man, there's a lot of mental background that goes into even just completing the morning routine. You've got planning for what you need to bring. You've got prioritizing how you spend your time. You have focus kicking in on not, like, oh man, that video game sounds so fun. But there's the focus on the prioritizing, again, the attention. There's the visualizing skills. There's the short-term memory component. See, I told you it's kind of mixed in there, of remembering the steps to get ready. All of those things, even the initiation is part of an executive function. So I'm hoping that you can feel how desperately important they are, and also, isn't it crazy that this might be your first time hearing about it? So I saw a couple more people joined in. It's so good to see you. I'm so happy. And David, your baby is adorable. So we're going to move to the not so hot executive function. So this is a child who is struggling with executive function. And I want to pause there to tell you three things. I'm going to challenge your assumptions, and I'm hoping that you will be willing to kind of get in there, cause some cognitive dissonance, and say, okay, maybe I need to rethink this, okay? So a child who struggles with executive function is not trying. This is not a lack of effort. This is also not bad behaviors. This is not, I've never met a kid who wakes up and says, I want to fail all day at even basic things. I want the adults around me to be angry all the time. Haven't met them, and I'm old, and I've taught for almost 15 years. Never met that kid. So it's not a lack of effort, it's not bad behaviors, and it's also not a lack of desire to do well. So, and I know it gets tricky because when you are missing a skill, it's way easier to act like it doesn't matter to you, or it's even, I have a lot of kids who choose naughty rather than dumb. So they'll act like, oh, well, I don't care, this is stupid. And it's not actually true. It's more just, hey, I'm putting on this protective, tough, like, I don't want you to see that I'm struggling inside. So when I'm describing this child, I'm certainly not placing a judgment on him for the lack of skills or saying that he's lacking effort. So again, when we see this type of kid, we're thinking this kid wants to be successful, this kid needs to be taught skills, rather than making the assumption, oh, this kid doesn't care, he just doesn't, like, is not into school, he likes making me mad, like, drop that and challenge yourself to think, what could he be missing? Because honestly, like, you could be done with me at this point. That is the most important thing I can teach you. But hopefully you'll stick around because I have so many coaching tips and new perspectives and strategies and all kinds of good stuff that I've been working on. So here's the child who is missing the computer programs in his brain to be able to run the executive function. So this child also wakes up. it's time to get ready for school. But because he's lacking some attention management, and maybe some impulse control issues, he's going straight for his video games. And it takes his mom about 10 times before she finally unplugs the video game and the yelling starts. Okay? And in a couple weeks, I'm going to teach you about brain chemicals, because this is absolutely, this phenomenon is supported by science. So remember, it's not naughty. It's actually, you get a whole bunch of focus juice. That's what I teach my kids. In your brain when something's new and novel or highly stimulating, which is why if you don't have the executive function skills or the strategies, if you're naturally missing them, then it's way harder to avoid the exciting brain chemicals that are going to come to you as a reward if you do certain activities. So we've already had yelling. The kid's not dressed and we're running out of time. So then the getting dressed routine starts. And there's a chance that there are not socks in the drawer because he doesn't have a system. So he may be wearing mismatched socks, no socks at all, maybe dirty socks. And again, remember, this isn't a judgment. And then the hunt for the shoes starts, because there's no system of my shoes go here every night. And so there's a whole bunch of time, maybe some frustration, maybe, and this is all before you even get to school. So let's pretend he gets dressed, he's doing all right, he's getting ready to pack his lunch, and ooh, that's really overwhelming. You have to know how much to pack, you have to remember a utensil, you have to consider what you feel like eating that day. Ooh, that's so overwhelming for a child with executive function deficits to have to plan and organize that thinking, that oftentimes he'll just avoid it. So here comes some more yelling. And then finally mom just commandeers, put everything in the lunch. We're ready to go to school. Oh, but we haven't packed our backpack. And you know what? He worked till midnight getting his homework done, because he is super duper smart. It's just so hidden with these executive function deficits. So he finds the homework, shoves it in his backpack. He forgets his cleats, so mom's going to get a phone call after school saying, hey, mom, can you bring my stuff? I forgot it. And again, it's not because he's not trying. It's because he doesn't have strategies to overcome those deficits. So this morning's a lot different. It's a lot more chaotic. It's a lot trickier for him to get through. But again, it's not his choice. So I would really like you to challenge your own thinking in this when you come across a kid who has difficulty with these things. Instead of thinking like, come on, we've had the same fight every day, or like, how many times have I told you, or you did your homework, why don't you turn it in? All of those things that we have, that, you know, internal snark that sometimes comes out. I'm going to challenge you this week to pause yourself and think back to what could they be missing, because chances are it's not a lack of, remember, it's not a lack of desire, it's not a bad behavior, it's just not having the system to overcome a deficit that's either the brain just coming on board. Remember, the frontal lobe's not totally even online, I like to say, till 22. So chances are, if you're not a college teacher, this is your world. You're dealing with, you're supporting students like this, and it's really important that we have a new perspective on it, on how to interact with it. Okay? Sorry, I hope that I'm not too soapboxy. I'm open to feedback if I am, but I'm also really, really passionate about this amazing set of skills called executive function that really can change lives and no one knows about. So just a quick background on executive function. A lot of the research comes out of the autism world. So students with autism are, I'm not going to say very likely, but there's a good correlation between autism and having some executive function deficits. So right now I currently have a brilliant student who is very hodgepodge with his notes. So even though we number the pages and we make a table of contents, sometimes he'll write in the back, sometimes he would write in the middle, and he could never find his stuff. And again, it wasn't a behavior. He just didn't realize that we all start from the beginning and then go through the pages. And this kid can recite like Nova episodes to me. I mean, he's brilliant. And yet there's this dysfunction in the organization in his brain. Isn't that interesting? So a lot of the research, thank goodness, we have the autism community to help us with that. And then it's also associated, so it's associated with autism, ADHD. It's huge. And think about how many times we assume it's behavior, learning disabilities, and poverty. So if you think about your classroom right now, or if you think about your own children, man, just those 4 areas, those are a lot of kids impacted by this. And even if you're not, even if you have a kid that doesn't fit in this category, there still could be some spots where you can learn some great strategies to help boost your kid as their brain comes online. And I'll be honest, I even use a lot of these strategies because I have to test them out. I mean, I'm perfect, of course. Just kidding. So this comes tried and true from things that I've done in my classroom. So I am so glad to have you join me. I really thought I only had a couple pages of notes, and I'm like, oh, this will take 10 minutes, and look, we're at almost 22. So I sure appreciate that you are here, and I would love if you could share this video with other people that you know that could help them introduce them to this beautiful world of executive function, because as we grow our tribe, we can help more people. So please share, please reach out. I'm here if you have questions, and I'm so excited to be on this journey with you. Bye for now. Psych, just kidding. I want to check if anybody has questions. Nope. Aw, Joan said it's a passion of hers too. All right. Bye for reals.